what does that mean for Ukraine when Putin, Xi Jinping, and Kim Jong-un met at the same place? Is that something? I know it's nothing new. We met them before. Yeah. I mean, this trio. So, I mean, it's nothing new. But here in 2025, do we see any new signals from them?
Yeah. So you'd like to think that they are, well, so they would like you to think, rather, that this is some kind of really big thing, like, look how tough we are. Again, North Korean and Russian officials were fighting with each other over controlling the air conditioning system, right? Like Putin wanted one setting and Kim wanted it a lower or higher setting, and they're fighting over it. The North Koreans were wiping everything down so there wasn't a trace of Kim's DNA. That included bringing his own bathroom with him. I'm not exactly sure how that worked, but so that there was no trace, so that they couldn't determine if he was ill or anything through DNA samples of Kim to figure out something. Like, they don't trust each other. They really don't. So, this is how authoritarians are. They cooperate, but they really don't trust each other. Remember what started with World War II and Poland.
Yes, yes. And the Trump's reaction, like a little kid, little boy offended by they all were together and he was not kind of invited on Truth Social.
Yeah. I'm not sure if he wasn't invited, but he was aware that they're kind of plotting, saber rattling, that sort of thing. And in that, he has these like moments where he can kind of see things, and then he kind of goes back to his standard course of he wants to not ruin the relationship that he thinks. I'm going to clarify that he thinks that he has with Putin. I don't think Putin has the same relationship with Trump that Trump thinks that Putin has with him, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like a romantic relationship where like he thinks she really likes him and she thinks, I don't really like him. I'll keep him stringing along, but I don't. Yeah, it's kind of like that.
Yeah, absolutely true. But could India finally move into the orbit of Russia and China because of its trade war with the US, basically?
Could India?
Yeah.
So that's really the weird thing. Right? India and China historically hate each other. I mean, go back over the last couple of decades, and they're at odds with each other.
They haven't seen each other for a long time at the same place. Yeah. I mean.
So that was my read is that that's an unforced error on our part by imposing tariffs on India because of the Russian oil and driving India into Chinese arms, where that wouldn't naturally have happened before without our doing that rather than dealing with Putin directly about what we need to deal with Putin with. So, it's one problem exacerbating another.
Yeah, and Trump actually invited both Putin and Xi Jinping to next year's G20 summit in the US, something that he had to do by protocol, I believe, but still, here's the question.
As observers, rather, and said they probably won't want to come as observers, but I'd like to have them there. Look, I'd like the world to be at peace too, but as long as we're not going to be in a condition of peace where Russia's going to do what it's doing to Ukraine, I don't want to encourage them by saying, well, you can come and play nice with the rest of the world while you're doing this to Ukraine. That's not okay. That sends a terrible, horrible message. So we don't want to do that.
Actually, I don't like to speculate with the World War III, but the question that I was not asking a year ago, now I see it more vital to ask, do you see World War III as a real possibility? And if it doesn't happen, are we instead facing, in the future, long, simmering conflicts all over the world?
So I think Estonia is showing by what it's doing on its border in Poland and Latvia and Lithuania that they're bracing for something really big and bad from Russia because they're expecting more of this. So I think you go with what they're doing as an indication that this could happen. I see nothing about what the Russians are doing that's telling me that they're wanting to stop. I see the Europeans rearming, even going into debt in order to arm. Right, they're allowing debt, provisions within the EU as long as it's for military purposes. So all those signs seem to show me that something very likely could cook off, and I don't know if it'll be limited or if it'll continue. How we play this tells us how that's going to continue. I mean, if we continue this somewhat appeasing path, then I think it's more likely than if we just ratchet up the pressure like we should have.
Yeah, Baltic countries, they are not choosing appeasing path, definitely. And actually, I've heard from some experts that Russia is kind of provoking Baltic countries, Poland, in the same way they did with the Ukraine in 2022. All these soldiers next to the border, all these drills and propaganda.
Finland as well. They're doing it to Finland.
Yes.
They're doing it to Finland too. So absolutely. I mean, there's nothing new. It's the same script. Yes. Anywhere that was potentially historic Russian lands, however they define it, are in jeopardy. And if you're in the Baltic states, you don't want to go back to having been absorbed back into the Soviet Union like they did by force in the 40s. You just don't want that. So you're preparing.
But, okay, if Trump realizes he has been manipulated by Putin, what would he do next?
I don't know how to get that through his head. Like, I think the only way that this happens is if there are enough Republicans. And so, there's Democrats and Republicans. There's basically only two parties in the U.S., right? If enough of his own party are saying, Trump, your historic legacy is going to be that you let Putin run all over you and cause World War III. Unless he hears, short of him, like, really digesting that, I just can't see how to dislodge him from his would-be friendship that he holds dearly in his head about Putin. I don't see it yet. And I want to see it. I just don't.
Okay, he will just not accept this as a reality.
I would like to have thought that he would have seen this sooner, and I don't see that he's seeing it. At least not yet. I don't know what's going to cause him to do it, and I wish I had a better answer for you, but I just don't see it yet.
Actually, I was reading some of the articles saying what tactics Putin used that Donald Trump's behave the way he behaves. And there was something like KGB tactics, like on public, Putin very complimentary about Trump, his diplomacy, let's say, and his behavior and everything and policy. So, but in reality, he's just ignoring American president. And somehow, this gaslighting working with the brain.
Yeah, and he's ceding the ground by saying, see, look at all these things that are happening on the battlefield. It's inevitable, and Trump wants to back the winner. And as long as he sees that Russia is the winner, he keeps going down that path. And that seeding of misinformation is going to feed through Trump's advisors, because personnel is policy, and he'll be hearing it from his own advisors that oh, look what the Russians are doing. So when Zelensky got to meet him and show him, like, look, what the Russians have been able to do in the last 1,000 days is take about 1% of Ukraine. 1% with upwards of 1 million casualties. So how are they really doing? I think that was brilliant, because that was kind of breaking through some. But again, he listens to whoever he talked to last. So I just don't know what's going to happen here.
Yeah, the final question just comes to my mind. If the war is still going on by the next U.S. election, will any Republicans remain openly supportive of Ukraine?
Oh yeah, there's a split within the Republican Party. I'm a Republican, but I'm not that kind of Republican, right? So I'm like the old school kind of Republican, a Reagan Republican. This is what conservative Republicans were, and then in 2016 when Trump came in, he kind of shifted the party a whole different direction. Like, we're talking about things that Republicans never talked about. Tariffs. Why are we talking about? We're not the tariff crowd, right? We're talking about, like, he just came out with something about 200 executive orders. We've always criticized executive orders. He shifted from where Bush was about like, look, we have to defend democracy to why are we involved in that over there? So he shifted the party, and there's a real rift within the party, but the MAGA types are on the ascendancy, and people like me are in the minority within our own party. So what'll happen in the next, I don't know, it's 3 years is eternity away in political time.
I heard that J.D. Vance will run the presidency.
Yeah, I'm sure he would love to. I don't know. Vice presidents don't always become president. Very rarely, actually, it seems. Secretary of States seem to become president more often than vice presidents. And Marco Rubio, who is the most supportive, probably in your corner with Keith Kellogg, is the Secretary of State. That would be a much better scenario.
Much better, yes.
Yeah, I mean, Vance is even worse than Trump, believe it or not.
I know,
when it comes to this sort of thing.
I believe you.
And for Vance, I'll let you tell me why in just a second. But for Vance, it's ideological. With Trump, it's just like I want to be Putin's friend or something like that. It's not so much ideology, but Vance is hardcore ideology. Like he's hardened. So yeah, you said you know what.
About the J.D. Vance, because I have my American friends, and they were telling me, Natalie, you will not believe that J.D. Vance, but J.D. Vance, Donald Trump comparatively to J.D. Vance will be kind of a butterfly because J.D. Vance, he's a true ideologist.
Yes, that's right. Vance is worse, and Trump could turn and go the other direction because ideologically he's not beholden to it. I'm not sure what will turn him, but it could happen. Vance, I don't think, is going to move that direction because he's solidly that way. It's kind of like past presidents. You knew that George Bush pointed that way. You knew that Barack Obama pointed that way. Like that was normal. Like you expected that. With Trump, he can kind of vacillate, but he keeps pointing toward Russia just because of that relationship that he thinks that he has with Putin. And most of the world seems to be able to see it except for him.
Yeah, I miss Joe Biden so much, to be honest.
I criticized Biden because he was deterred by Putin, but he was trying to support Ukraine. Trump came in, and instead of trying to be on one side supporting Ukraine, he was actually trying to be, I'm going to come in and I'm going to be an honest broker between the two of you, and I'm going to bring you together. That was wrong. You should have been supporting Ukraine in order to pushing that forward. But anyway, well, now we have another president, and I don't know where it leads to, but yeah, we have to rely on ourselves as well. Much more than to rely at everyone else, I guess. So I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you that the West was more there with you. They're there in spirit and they're there in words, but I'm not sure that they're quite there yet with the actions that they need to be taking. But I see good signs when I see Germany starting up an artillery plant, right? Or multiple artillery plants. That's the right direction. When you start seeing those kind of tangible actions, you know that they're moving the right way.
The right way, yes. And they're arguing to give us finally Taurus to hit Russia. So basically, maybe we will move somewhere from a dead point.